All right, let's get started here. My name is David Legrand. I'm the Alliance Lead at Polestar Analytics. For the next half hour to 35 minutes, we're going to have a very interactive conversation with Fred Abood on the topic of how to modernize before you're left in the dust. Try to give a little bit of insight to talking about when to migrate and modernize your estate, how important data cleanup is with your data estate, integrating the Databricks data intelligence platform, understanding some of the advanced use cases like data sharing. Cost reduction is a big topic here. So this is going to be informal, slightly structured conversation with Fred Abood. Fred, why don't I turn it over to you and do an introduction for yourself, and then we can get started here.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Fred Abood, I'm lead solutions architect in the SI partner organization here at Databricks. I've been here for about almost 5 years, actually. The first 3.5 I spent in like a direct customer facing role. And then I moved over to our partner organization last summer.
So like 5 years is a while. I mean, that's light years at Databricks. You saw the Lakehouse launch.
Yeah.
With this hat, you've seen the data intelligence platform, now OpenAI. What's changed? What have you seen over that last 5 years?
We've made a huge stride in our product maturity and the way we position the company as well. I think I joined shortly after they sunset, the slogan, like the Spark company, and started shifting, in the days of like Delta Lake and the storage wars, more over to, the platform as a whole. We've invested a ton of money in a more tightly integrated platform, in our data warehousing capabilities, and more recently in our governance and AI capabilities.
So no more LinkedIn posts comparing Snowflake to Databricks. You've gone so far ahead that that's non-relevant anymore.
Yeah. We're pitching the whole platform. Absolutely. I think we're doing very well in the data warehousing, and at this point, I think the next frontier is definitely governance.
Governance, interesting. We can talk a little bit about Unity Catalog and so forth. Okay, if the title of this chat is how to modernize before you're left in the dust, let's start with the very beginning. The term modernization, what does that mean to you? What have you seen over the last 5 years at Databricks?
Yeah, I think when people talk about modernization, they're almost always comparing it to, an alternative that looks something along the lines of like a lift and shift. I think when we think about like modernizing your estate or modernizing your data platform, we've had a few different paradigms over the years of how enterprise data platforms are built. We had the legacy data warehouses, then came the data lakes and the Hadoop days, and now that we're in the cloud and we're building out lake houses, you modernize into the next platform when your old paradigm grows stale, right? You look for cost optimizations, and you look for enterprise efficiencies, but people often say, you know what, I have my existing system. This code is probably good enough. Like, let's lift and shift it into this new software stack, right? And I think
so.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, if that's the perspective of saying old and new,
yeah,
are they just thinking about cost savings then? What I don't hear you talking about here with the definition of modernization is the future use cases that they're going to. Do you find that often that's
and that's where people miss the mark. They usually think, hey, I can save money on my initial implementation by doing the least amount of work to get into the new stack. And then I can worry about modernizing into sort of a new design principle later on. And the old design principles, right, of a legacy system rarely carry over one-to-one into the new paradigm. And when they do, right, you frequently end up with a new platform that is significantly more expensive than it should be because it wasn't intended to be architected in the way you've implemented it, right? So,
That makes a lot of sense. So how
yeah.
do you, when you come in, I mean, one of your roles is in partner solution architect, is to
Hmm.
get people to start to map their modernization journey.
Totally.
How do you get the end in mind instilled into a business? Do you start at the business? Do you start at IT? You start at the data engineer, data scientist at the bed?
Yeah.
I mean, how does that happen?
I think no matter who you start with, right? You have to come in where you have relationships and with the group that's willing to work with you. And so whether you're starting with the business or with IT or with, a group of end users that have a use case they need to implement, um, I always start by asking, what are the actual requirements you have, right? Like oftentimes people come to me and they'll say, hey, I want to do it like this. Is Databricks, do you have this
Are you
pick list of
capable?
features,
Hmm.
right? Like an RFP style, like, is this something you can do? Check the box, yes or no, right? And if I just go down the list and say, yes, 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 no, 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 yes, no, then almost certainly I'm missing an opportunity, right? To educate around the design principles that should be considered with the new paradigm that the market is moving towards, right? So I'll always try and reframe the conversation and have a discussion around the requirements for the end system, right? And then
Hmm.
the discussion basically goes, XYZ, these are the requirements. And I say, so if we could do it like this, then that system would work for you,
So you're
right?
focusing on outcome-based
Outcome
versus
based,
process-based.
exactly. Yep.
Interesting. So like part of that has to be quick wins, part of that has to be long-term strategy.
Yep.
How important is that quick win to you? Is it preconceived in their mind? You create it for them? How does that all come together?
We almost always, nobody is ever like, building a data platform because for the intrinsic data system, right? It always starts with the business value and the use cases that you're trying to execute on.
Hmm.
And I think the reason why Databricks has been so successful in the market is because um, most companies' core competency isn't building and deploying data platforms, right? You are great at insurance, or you're a great manufacturer, or you're an excellent healthcare provider. And in order to do that, you need a data platform. And so,
Or you need Polestar Analytics to help you
or you need
implement that data
Polestar
platform.
Analytics, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think, right, like carving off or like segmenting your business into digestible pieces is always like the first step, right?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
right, like what is a standalone piece of the business that we can implement their system or migrate them into the new platform, right? Without impacting everybody else, right? And I think
That's a really interesting point of view. If I were to take lesson one from this conversation
mhm,
is focus where your success is, focus where your relationships are.
yeah,
Interesting point of view there. All right. So let's move on to the next topic, data state cleanup. Okay.
yeah.
So the first thing that what I heard you say, it's not lift and shift.
Hmm.
It's it's get your house in order, clean your room, then take it to the data platform, take it to the cloud, and so forth.
Yeah.
Um, what are the three red flags you look for when you're doing a data state health check?
Hmm. Um, so I think, I don't know if I have like a list of three, but I think
Or
how I
give me
always
one or two.
advise people to sort of go about the problem, right, is like, let's get some observability in place first, right? Let's collect the metadata around how your system is being used, right? Because a common thing we see with almost every enterprise is, right, you started with a centralized, right, in terms of paradigms, we started with centralized data management Then as the data estate grew, we federated data ownership to domain teams, right? Who now own a portion of the data estate. And a consequence of that is we no longer have any sort of centralized awareness of what's out there or how it's being used, right? So before you do a migration, it is absolutely paramount that we learn what's out there, right? Otherwise, we're going to end up migrating potentially duplicate assets or assets that are not being used at all, right? And so I think that's where we tend to shine with the observability and metadata collection that's available in Unity Catalog, right? Like we offer bring your own storage and we offer bring your own compute, and you can run your governance through the catalog, which allows you to actually see in our lineage tools and our monitoring tools what's being used and how, and where your duplicate assets tend to sit, right? And that allows you to actually figure out and actually stack rank what should we approach first and what's the relative trade-off from like a cost benefit of owning these assets long term.
So what I heard you mention was, the amount of features that have come out in the last year has been outstanding. Delta Live tables, Delta Flow, improvements with notebook creation, Unity Catalog. Where do you get that governance, and how do you I heard you make the term Unity Catalog. Is that the central place to clean up your data estate?
Exactly. In terms of getting access to managing the metadata around your tables, owning the governance and security layer, the sharing and the monitoring, all of that comes out of Unity Catalog. And Unity actually, the way we're going to market with Unity is that it's free. It sits in our control plane, so the software doesn't cost you anything. With Lakehouse Federation, you can layer Unity Catalog on top of your existing data warehouses and your existing, storage solutions. And then we also have open APIs, so you can actually read and write to Unity from external systems. So since Databricks only charges for compute, that means you could architect it in a way where Unity is free for you and you don't actually leverage Databricks for the other pieces. We're going to compete with you for your compute because we have the best compute on the market.
So just a little plug for Polestar Analytics. Polestar Analytics does, if you do not have Unity Catalog in your environment today, we can migrate that for you and implement that for you. We've done that extensively in the alcohol beverage markets, and we have the capability. Now, what I heard you say, and I wanted to clarify this with Unity Catalog here, if you're running GCP BigQuery as your layer, can you actually put Unity Catalog and get data out of BigQuery into Databricks to get full lineage and governance?
So I don't know the state of the product roadmap right now in terms of what's in preview and the specific warehouses, but I know BigQuery is available, or at least on the roadmap, for both federation and compute. Yeah.
I use that, probably shouldn't have used that as an example.
Sure.
But I wanted to say, GCP, BigQuery, Snowflake, S3, all that is super.
Yeah, we do have a really broad ecosystem of tool compatibility and whatnot in that space. And the goal is to make Unity Catalog, the best governance layer, regardless of your data platform decision. And then obviously, we offer world-class tools at every integration point in the catalog as well.
Interesting. All right. Let's move on to the next topic, data integration with the data intelligent platform. And I guess this goes along with the Unity Catalog discussion. So let's talk about the big picture. I know personally you've been very involved with manufacturing. Manufacturing is a very complex environment where you have data historians, you have data warehouses, you have on-prem, and so forth. So from that perspective, what business use cases are available when all your data is in one place versus siloed across multiple systems? Is there a use case that really stands out that you personally can talk about?
Yeah, I think in manufacturing, there's a concept of a digital thread, right? And people talk a lot about digital threads and digital twins in the context of smart factories, right? And making your manufacturing process specifically more intelligent. And that is obviously possible, and it's well documented how to do that in the industry and how to do that on Databricks. I think the really interesting thing is, at its core, the digital thread is really like a semantic layer or knowledge graph that sits on top of your data estate in order to track what's happening in real time. And that can easily extend beyond the manufacturing process, right? And cover, depending on how well you manage your data ownership and your data products and the policies and people things that you put in place, you can actually extend to have data products and a digital thread that covers your entire enterprise. So you're no longer, just looking at the smart factory. You could also extend it into, warranty claims and your customer data platform. And I think it's especially important in the age of AI, where we need these knowledge graphs to power intelligent systems.
So really powerful. I want to dig into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you supported a very large equipment manufacturer in the past.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that by building a Databricks platform, it's on their roadmap or possible to manage their manufacturing, so discrete manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
but then also share data into the distributor network and the supplier network? Is that the power when you talk about enterprise compute and enterprise solutions?
Yeah, well, with data sharing specifically, yeah, that's huge for supply chain optimization, to be able to go 2 or 3 or 4 layers deep into your supply chain so that when the chemical was late arriving to the port, that's going to impact, the amount of paint you can produce 6 months down the line, and so you need to make adjustments here and there, right? And that's huge. So that would be like vertically integrating your data estate across your supply chain. There's also, the concept of like a more tightly integrated data ecosystem across, the organizations, within your own company as well. And I think that extends into, things like your customer data platform, right? Like, what kind of ads do you want to serve your customers based on the part that might be failing on the vehicle that they're driving down the road,
So what you're telling me, you can, when you look at the outcome map we're using manufacturing as an example here, you can improve marketing, you can improve supply chain, you can improve manufacturing, you can improve, say, modernization of that data, all on the Databricks platform by integrating the data into the lakehouse, into the thread, and so forth.
And you really, a single pane of glass for your governance layer is really the only way that you can implement the required, security and get the peace of mind you need to allow AI to operate at scale across your business, right? AI ushers in a whole new layer of concerns for data security. And if you don't have that foundational layer established in your platform, it's really hard to get enterprise value out of AI systems, right? But if you do it properly, then you can open up these tools to your teams, and they can start building, smart chatbots and data rooms where you can talk to your data and build, systems that actually take action on behalf of people, and do it in a cohesive way where you're confident in the results.
Okay, let's dwell a little bit more on the data sharing use cases. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about you. I mean, you were very broad, talking about marketing, talking about supply chain,
Sure.
talking about manufacturing, and so forth. How do you choose if you're gonna embark upon a out of enterprise experience or enterprise
Mm-hmm.
experience where you're bringing in different? How do you again? This is about modernization. How do you choose where to start when you want to take an advanced use case for
Yeah.
data sharing?
Yeah, I think it all has to start with business value, right? If you're not getting value out of the use cases that you implement, then it's just a science experiment and it's sort of just burning company resources. So, weighing the value you expect to get out of the result against the cost and risk of doing so is paramount. And then the other thing is like, what do you have influence and control over, right? And how many stakeholders do you have to line up to your plan, if you want to bite off a bigger piece, of the pie, right? So,
Yeah. Okay.
um,
So
I,
it's focusing on who you know, what you know, and the
yep,
maturity of that group or section that you're going to work on.
yep,
So you really need to do a stank racking, not just saying I
yep,
want this, but how well do I know it? What's the ROI and
yep.
so forth. Now
And you
you
don't
brought up a
necessarily have to go enterprise wide with that ranking right off the bat, right? Like
right,
you can
right.
you can start with the things in your purview. But definitely important to always make sure you're getting value back out of these experiments.
I never thought you'd bring up Purview in a Databricks conversation when it's a Microsoft product.
Oh, you goaded me into that one.
I did get you. I did get you on that one. So you brought up the discussion about marketing and about marketing can use Delta share and so forth.
Yeah,
Um, are clean rooms, so as I understand a clean room is a place to aggregate data. Are
yeah.
clean rooms always needed on the Databricks platform, or what use cases would you choose a clean room versus just a lake house to aggregate data?
Yeah, I think there's like three things that you said there in terms of the technology, right? And they exist sort of on a spectrum. You have like your lake house and your data platform. Then you have like Delta sharing without a clean room. And then you have Delta sharing with a clean room, right? And it's an important difference. And I don't think they have a ton of overlap in terms of when they're the right option. So you have Delta sharing without a clean room. And when you do that, you pretty much share your data as is directly into, the recipient's workspace. And you can implement row and column level security. So maybe they only see certain data at certain times or based on their persona. Um, but the data is basically presented as is. Um, and then you have Delta sharing with the clean room implementation, right? And that allows you to share sensitive data, in an obfuscated manner. So you could potentially share and collaborate leveraging data, and maybe the underlying data set contains PII, and you don't want the recipient to be able to view the PII. You can share it in a clean room, and that will ensure that we're not revealing any data that is aggregated, you know, below the requisite level of aggregation in order to be like sufficiently obfuscated, right? So in those types of scenarios where you do want to collaborate with someone, but they shouldn't have, unrestricted readability of your data at the same time, that's really when a clean room shines. Whereas
Interesting.
Delta sharing can really be used, it can even be used internally. We recommend it all the time to share from one environment into another, or from one region into another, or from one cloud into another, right? It's simply, a universal protocol that's free to use and open source that allows you to share your data across Delta Lake readers, right? So that is really powerful, and it takes away a lot of the headache of integrating different tools or different clouds or different regions with one another, because you can simply share the data in one workspace and have it show up in the catalog of the other workspace as if it was created right there, right?
Right
So,
there. So no movement of data. It's
yeah,
data where you need it. Okay.
exactly.
Let's keep moving on to talk about when we talked about early on when we talked about modernization. You said there's a preconceived notion of a lift and shift. People
Sure.
are going to go from this environment and magically save money to a cloud environment,
Yeah.
and we talked about going through that. You need the end in mind. You need to clean up your data, have a plan to clean up your data state. It's not
Yeah.
a lift and shift. So I've heard the term serverless, right?
Yeah.
Um, what is serverless?
Yeah.
Let's dwell into the easy stuff first on cost reduction.
So in the Databricks world, serverless means that the compute is in our account. It's really that simple. And that allows for a few things. It allows for instant on access. It allows for reduced versioning and dependency management, right? Like we can just ensure everything is always up to date. And so you don't ever have to worry about updating your runtime or managing your library versions or any of that sort of headache that you get out of a less managed environment, right?
So does that mean data has to go from my Unity catalog, my control to Databricks? Does that mean that you're seeing my data now, that it's in your environment?
So it does move into our cloud,
Okay.
obviously if the compute is in our cloud.
Okay.
But I think there's a preconceived notion that that is less secure, which is definitely not the case,
Because it's
right?
the same, it's just a different environment of Databricks. It has the same infrastructure, same Unity catalog, same governance, and so forth. It just moved over to your servers that are spinning it up.
Yeah, I don't want to like get into the super nitty gritty of the security because I'm not like the security guy, but
That's
right, what I'll
okay.
say, right, is that we definitely implement the highest standards of enterprise security and
Makes sense.
capabilities across our stack, right? And we operate in every industry
Yep.
where all the most sensitive data is being used, right? So
Makes
I
sense.
think when people have an issue with the security model, it usually is because of what we discussed before, where they're trying to apply, they're coming from an old paradigm and they want me to come in and say, oh, yes, the Databricks paradigm works just like the paradigm that you're used to, right? And that's not really the case, right? It is a new paradigm,
Well,
but if
because
we
it has new
start,
capabilities,
right, exactly.
new functionalities. I get that.
Exactly. If we
So,
start with like your requirements, though, right? We
mhm.
can almost always meet the requirements as long as you're able to meet us halfway in terms of how we get there, right?
So let's talk about ROI then and moving to
Sure. Yeah,
serverless, right?
totally.
So you get all the spin up. You don't have to wait for to allocate
Yeah,
to move forward and so forth. We also talked about getting your data state clean and so forth. How is
totally.
serverless ROI developed before you go to serverless?
Yeah, the
What kind of
serverless.
decisions or what measurements do you need today to know that
Yeah.
serverless is there tomorrow?
So one of the biggest things people forget to consider is that because the compute is now in our account, the cloud compute cost is bundled into the serverless price. So you can't look one to one at the Databricks price to account for that, right? You have to include the cloud costs that you would have
Right.
incurred in the non-serverless world. That's the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is earlier, right, when I said we allow you to bring your own compute and we're going to compete with you because we have the best compute on the in the space. This is what I'm referring to, right? So Databricks, our serverless product, might be marginally more expensive, but if you compare it to and you take in the price performance and the full runtime of your workload, right?
Yeah.
You might be spending more per hour on compute, but you're probably spending less on the same
Time.
workload to run in the environment, right?
Right.
And that's
Right.
because of the runtime that we've built and the
Yeah.
optimizations we've put in, we're very confident that it's the best compute on the market. And that's why we're willing to go head to head, against whatever your favorite compute might be
Now,
to win those workloads.
that makes total sense. It's high value compute, less time computing, overall cost reduction there.
Yeah.
What's the common prerequisites or readiness steps? Like, do you need to be on DLT? Do you need to clean up notebooks? What
Yeah.
is your pipeline health? That kind of, can you give any recommendations to the audience on
Yeah.
that perspective?
The migration to serverless is fairly straightforward. Once you've assessed it from a security perspective and generally decided, yeah, this is going to work for us in terms of the tool. Migrating from non-serverless to serverless is as simple as like opening up your compute resource and like checking the serverless box.
Yeah. And I've seen
Um,
that when I've gone on the Databricks, the extensive partner training and so forth.
yeah,
It's literally that click a box and you go
it's
forward. Do you
super
have any
easy.
recommendations though for again on moving to DLT or
Yeah,
Lakeflow or notebook cleanup, or is that just general best practice to get your
yeah.
house in order anyway?
I wouldn't say that those things are a prerequisite to using serverless, right?
Okay.
Those things are all great tools on their own. Um, and hopefully you would use serverless compute alongside of them, right? We think Lakeflow is going to be the best tool on the market, right? DLT, we just open sourced it. It's a great once you like, you know, update your semantics in terms of learning how to write a DLT pipeline. Dev time goes down. It's more performant. It allows you to focus on your business logic, right? And now it's open source as well. So that was maybe one of the biggest objections to using DLT is that it was proprietary, and it's no longer proprietary. So
So
that's a
just
huge
a
benefit.
just a, again,
Yeah.
unshameful plug for Polestar Analytics. We have a product that sits on top of DLT, Delta Live Tables or Lakeflow. That's a
Hmm.
drag and drop method to ease pipeline creation. Takes all the power of DLT and with a wrapper on top makes pipeline creation that much easier. It's called Data Nexus is that product. All right, here. We've been on chit-chatting for about a half hour here. I'd like to talk about two things. What's a health check, first off, and then we'll talk about the future. How's a health check even relevant to an idea of modernize before you're left in the dust? Is my first question.
Yeah, I think I think probably more explicitly calling out like a common theme of my advice here, right? Is like you can't migrate until you know what you have and where your current state is, right? And so doing some kind of health check before you embark is paramount in order to it's that stack ranking, right? That you need to do in order to figure out which items do we want to migrate first, which items are a priority, which items do we not want to migrate at all, right? Um, yeah, so it's super important to start
Okay,
there.
all right.
Yeah.
So, and I know that the two of us. All right, let's talk about the future. All right, Sam Altman, OpenAI, big announcement here. What's the next crystal ball for Malagasy? Give us all an insider's view of what's next. Like, just blows me away that we're going to be able to have basically RAG chatbots right in the platform that are pre-built and working. Tell me about the future.
I think you're gonna see us. I don't know what is on Ali's mind, but I think you're gonna see us continuing to move up the stack and abstract away the most difficult parts of managing a data platform, right? You saw that back in the old days, you used to have to manually optimize Spark clusters, right? And like that's becoming less and less necessary as our serverless product gets better with agent bricks, right? We have this great tool, Mosaic AI, which if you want to build your own models or you even want to do right pre-training or build your own foundational model, like the Databricks platform is very capable of that if you're all the way on the left, right? But if you're way over on the right and you just want to spin up a quick knowledge-based chatbot, like Agent Bricks is the abstraction layer that allows you to come in and do that with a few clicks in a UI, right? And I think we're going to continue moving in that direction, right? Our goal is to democratize data and AI for all. And in order to do that, we have to bring the capabilities to the people that don't have the necessarily like coding oriented technical skill sets.
Hence why you just launched Databricks One to make it democratized. Yep. If you don't know what it is a user intensive platform. Polestar Analytics also is launching, actually today, our Agenthood on Databricks. Agenthood, again, is a drag and drop tool that you can use on top of Agentbricks to develop agentic type use cases. All right, let's have some fun. One last question here. So Ali Ghodsi is the CEO of Databricks. He grew up in Iran, moved to Sweden, teaches at Berkeley. Very engaging. When I worked at Databricks, we were 500 million, taking it to 4 billion. Last question: if you were Ali Ghodsi for a week, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I was afraid that was going to come up. You sent that over in the questions.
Probably ski more.
Are you a movie guy? Are you a movie guy, David?
Yeah, I can work in that space a bit.
Yeah, my family, I come from a big Lebanese family. My family's big on mob movies, so we watch The Godfather a lot.
Oh yeah.
The quote, "Never take sides against the family."
that sums it up. So Ali,
never take sides against the family, David.
You've got your Databricks hat on and you're making all the right moves.
No,
so
Ali's making a lot of great decisions, and I think we're really well positioned.
Certainly is. That's the best insight that I have.
Yeah.
Fred Abood, I really appreciate the last 40 minutes that you've spent with me. I learned a lot from your point of view. The most important thing I think that I've learned is that you've gained this knowledge not from chatbots or ChatGPT or Genie, but by rolling up your sleeves and being with customers day in and day out. And now you're with partners. So I hope to do a lot more work with y'all in the future. Love it. If you want more information around products from Polestar Analytics, all you need to do is email us. One platform at polestarllp.com is the stuff. This recording will be available to both Databricks as well as people that attended today. So from my heart, Fred, love ya. Appreciate you spending the last 40 minutes with you. It was entertaining. It was meaningful, and I hope the audience here enjoyed that. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, David. It was great to be here.
Bye now.
Bye.